Hello, I'm Stephanie Ruff.
And I'm Aviva Nebeski.
We're the hosts of the Dressage Today podcast, where you can find us talking about anything and everything dressage related. Our conversations span the world of dressage, from leading riders to local level dressage heroes. We're talking training advice, showing tips, and sharing stories to inspire your own dressage journey. So tune in, then tack up. Welcome to the Dressage Today podcast, sponsored by Boehringer Ingelheim. This episode features an interview with up-and-coming dressage star AnnA Buffini. But first, since we are at the end of the year, it's time to look forward to 2022. Personally, I am not one for making New Year's resolutions, but it's still always a good time to give some thought to goals for the new year. So Aviva, what do you have in mind for next year?
Well, I'm not one who makes New Year's resolutions either. But I've been thinking a lot about this and what I'm looking forward to in 2022. And this isn't exactly a goal like I'm going to get in the, I'm going to have a clinic with so-and-so, or I'm going to teach Leo a flying change. But this is more a goal of who I want to be. And I read an article recently about the pressures that we put on ourselves to be things. And I decided that my goal for 2022 is to take the pressure off and to look at my riding in a very different way than I have been for the past year or two or three or four, and to go back to looking at my riding as a place of joy and celebration and harmony with my horses. So instead of thinking about, this is the year that I'm going to make my debut into the FEI ring and I'm going to earn my Prix St. George scores for my silver medal, instead I decided that I'm just going to enjoy the process and go where I'm going with Leo and embrace all of the successes that we have and forget about the failures and forget about the things that we still need to do, that's in quotations, need. And the same with Tiger, that, yeah, I did technically buy him to get my scores, but I'm really enjoying this process of watching this older horse blossom and having him blossom with me. And I know that he has really bad ulcers, and I know that traveling for him is hard, and I imagine that competing for him is very stressful as well. And so, he doesn't really care whether I earn my medal or not. He just really likes me. And I think he likes being ridden. And so I'm just enjoying the process, and I'm giving myself permission to just do what makes me happy. So that is my goal for 2022.
I think that is quite admirable.
Thank you. and I have to tell you, so when we did our podcast with Michelle Wellman and we talked about the cavaletti.
Oh, yes.
And I confessed what a weenie I am about things. So I want our listeners to know. So 20 years ago, I took my very green mare over a single pole on the ground, and she stopped dead and then launched over it. And I came off and I landed on the small of my back on the pole. And I broke my back and I ended up having to have surgery. Yeah. And this is why I'm so scared of obstacles.
Makes sense.
Well, so Jen Hoffman, who is my wonderful longliner, came last month and she longlined Leo over 3 cavaletti. Yay. And he did it.
Yay.
And he did it pretty well. And so I got brave and I rode my horse over cavaletti, and it has now become a regular part of every ride with both of my horses.
That's awesome.
And I am so proud of myself.
You should be.
Calling Michelle in January to schedule still a private lesson, to go and have a private lesson with Michelle and to practice over some cavaletti with her.
Yay.
So this is sort of what I'm talking about in terms of goals. I know that riding over 3 poles on the ground is not a really big goal for most people, but for me, it was really huge.
Yeah.
And I'm so proud of myself, and I'm so proud of Leo, who the first time I did it with him tripped and almost went down to his knees. And instead of my thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die and I can't do this, I just took him right back over and we're doing it. And I just can't even begin to tell you guys the joy
Yeah.
that this has brought to me. And it just reinforced to me that we're all on our own journeys.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful to have the sort of quote artificial goals of showing and competing and earning medals and earning ribbons and scores and all of that. But when it all comes back down to it, it's about little kids and their ponies and having fun.
Right.
And I want to be a little kid with her ponies again.
Yeah.
Since I never got to do that when I was a kid.
Well, there you go. That's true. That's true. You missed that whole phase.
I did. So that's my long answer to my New Year's resolution. So what are you looking forward to in 2022?
Okay, well, mine is a little bit oriented to what you're not going to do.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I know. Something else we talked about in a previous podcast was when you and I discussed the L program, and I was going to say that you must have inspired a lot of people, because I was going to sign up for the L program that's coming to Ocala next year, but it's full and the wait list is full.
So my God. Wow.
I'm not doing that, which was a goal, but is still a goal, just will hopefully happen later. I tend to procrastinate things, so that's an indication that I should not procrastinate quite as much as I do. But at any rate, for me to, like I said, it's still a goal, so I still want to go through that. But for me to be able to go through the entire L program and to try to become an L graduate, I still need third level scores. So I've decided that, poor Nadia, she doesn't necessarily know this yet, but we're going to we're going to try to get both of us back into a little bit more of show shape, because I've been doing what your goal is to do for the last few years, and I've just been kind of riding and enjoying and just kind of having a good time without anything really concrete in mind. But I would like to get both of us back into some show shape and try to get our third level scores this year, so that when the next opportunity presents itself for the L program, I will be fully qualified and able to hopefully enroll and go through the entire thing as a participant.
That is so exciting. Good for you. Those are great goals.
Well, we'll see.
Those are great goals.
But like you, I'm certainly not going to let that goal become kind of all encompassing. Like if it's not going to work with my horse, then, I'm not going to make it work with my horse. I will find another path to that. But hopefully she can work with me for a little while and we can do something. And I don't have any aspirations of going to any big CDI or anything like that around here. I just, we'll just kind of see how it progresses.
Well, she's a lovely mare, and she has everything that it takes to get you your scores at third level. I have no doubt in my mind whatsoever. It's just a matter of going out and doing it and being confident in your ability. You can do it. I know you can.
Yes. Well, thank you. We'll see. So we'll have to check in on our goals a little bit as next year progresses and see how we're doing.
Okay. Sounds good. And part of having goals is knowing that it's okay to change your mind or to not succeed them in those goals. So I'm already waffling, okay?
Right. Modified.
It's
okay. It's okay. Because, life tends to throw things at us that we don't expect.
Exactly.
This month's question for our Ask the L segment comes from Amy, and it's a bit of a two-part question for you. Okay. First of all, Do you ever get nervous before you judge a competition? And then similarly, do you get nervous before you show? And if so, how do you handle your nerves?
Oh, those are great questions. I'm going to start with the second one first. So I have absolutely horrific show nerves. In my first life, I was a pianist, and I was very nervous before I performed. But as soon as my fingers touched the keys, I was transformed and I loved it. And I love public speaking, and I love acting, and I love doing all of those kinds of things. And I get nervous beforehand, but it's not debilitating in any way. And it actually, in a lot of ways, excites and charges me up to do well, I think.
Right.
Competing with horses is a whole different ballgame. It is so debilitating for me that I have vomited before I compete. I forget tests. I mean, I am a complete and total wreck about competing. And it was so bad that I actually found a sports psychologist who specialized in performance anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
And I worked with her for a little bit when I was competing my big horse, Q, who I bred myself. And she gave me a series of things to do before each competition. Some things, weeks in advance, some things the day of, some things as I was entering the ring, just sort of rituals that I could use to sort of comfort me. But she also did something that was even more valuable, and that was that she helped me break down where my anxiety was coming from.
Oh, okay.
And we all come from a different place of anxiety. And what I found was probably the single biggest thing that inhibits me in competing is fear of not doing well, of making a fool of myself, because, I haven't been doing this all that long, and I'm not a particularly gifted rider, but I'm technically a pro.
Right.
And so people watch me when I ride, and they judge me when I ride, and they look at my scores and all of those kinds of things. And the amount of pressure, this goes back to my goal for 2022, the amount of pressure that I felt was crippling. And tied in with that performance anxiety of embarrassing myself publicly or not living up to people's expectations was also a lot of other things, like I was afraid I would fall off.
Right.
And that's a very real fear for a lot of people.
Yes.
And, we don't take that really seriously. But I worry about my horse spooking and my falling off. And I worry about my horse bolting and my falling off. And so what I did with the sports psychologist was sort of pin down all of my fears and all of the things that got in the way of my showing, and then trying to come up with strategies to feel better about it. And, we each come up with a strategy that works individually for us. When I was younger and I had a private practice, one of the things that I did in my private practice was hypnotherapy. And when you hypnotize people for various behavioral changes, you work with what works for that individual. My suggestions for you for weight loss would not be the same as my suggestions for somebody else, right? Because the reason that you eat isn't the same reason that somebody else eats. So I'm not going to, sit here and give people suggestions as to what they do to get over their performance anxiety. But what I would suggest is that they kind of think about what it is that scares them, what it is that makes them nervous. And then, if you feel it's legitimate, don't just say, oh, it doesn't matter what other people think. And, don't be silly. Just, go out and do your best, because that doesn't work, because what people think does matter to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So come up with strategies for, how do I come up with a way of feeling good about my performance, even if my performance isn't as good as I want it to be? How do I feel good about my performance knowing that it's the best that I can do. You know, you come up with your own strategies.
Right.
So that's a long answer to yes. I get very nervous before I compete. And that's probably part of the reason why I'm so nervous about going into the show ring with Tiger and making my FEI debut.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, I question whether I'm legitimately there. I question, you know, I always wanted to do it on a horse that I trained myself. Well, you know, this horse was trained by other people. Yeah, he's never been ridden Prix St. George, but, you know, he has been ridden 4th level. And so, you know, is it as legitimate? So yes, I get nervous about showing. I also, interestingly, do get nervous about judging.
Yeah.
But I get nervous about judging for very different reasons. The biggest reason that I get nervous when I judge is that I know that showing is really important to people. You know, if it wasn't important, we wouldn't do it. And I feel an incredible responsibility to make the experience in my ring a positive one.
Right.
You know, no one wakes up in the morning and says, I think I'll ride poorly today. I think I'll fall off the outside of my horse, and I think maybe I'll yank on the inside rein, and maybe I'll bounce really badly in the sitting trot, and I'm just going to do a really bad job. You know, none of us wake up in the morning and say that. We're all doing the very best we can at the moment that we're in the ring.
Yeah.
And sometimes we do poorly because we don't know any better. And sometimes we do poorly because it's a bad day. And sometimes we do poorly because we're nervous. I mean, there are just so many reasons. And I feel so much responsibility that when somebody does their final salute and walks up to me, that I give them something good to walk out on. That when they walk out there, that they can say, you know, she said that my braids were beautiful. She said that my horse was lovely. You know, something that people can feel good about. And, you know, in the olden days at schooling shows, we did talk to riders. I don't know how much more we're going to be doing that with the whole schooling show program through USDF. But, you know, in the olden days, we did talk to riders, and it was always important to me to say something good to a rider, to make some suggestions for things that could make them better.
Right.
But also to let them walk out feeling good.
Yeah.
Because I believe that we learn from positives more than we do from negatives.
Yeah.
And if somebody comes up and I say, well, that was a crap fest. I mean, what have I done positive? What have I done for our sport? What have I done for the rower? You know, what have I done for the horse at that point? So I want people to feel good when they walk out. I want the comments on the test. I want the collective remarks to give somebody a direction, but to make them feel good, that they did something right. So I feel nervous about that because of that responsibility.
Yeah.
Also, I feel nervous about judging because it's my opinion. And I mean, how many times have you or a friend of yours gone and competed and walked out of the ring and said, for instance, wow, that was the best test I've ever ridden. And the judge gives you a 57.
Right. Yes.
And, you know, the trainer says, well, that judge just doesn't know what he or she is looking at, or, you know, whatever. You know, the judges get badmouthed a lot. And sometimes it may be fair, and sometimes maybe it isn't fair.
Right.
But, you know, it matters to me that when I judge, what I say goes on a piece of paper and people take it home. And other people look at it and they may post their test online and say, this is the score that I got. So there's a lot of pressure that I, you know, quote, get it right. And that I can justify the scores that I give. And then there's the pressure with schooling shows in particular. I know a lot of professional trainers and they bring their students to show, and I'm judging them. I have judged my own trainer. You want to talk about pressure?
Yeah.
So Amy, I do get nervous. I will say that I am more confident in my judging skills than I am in my riding skills. I haven't felt the need to go to the psychologist to help me with my nerves for judging the way I did with my riding. But I think that anything that matters makes us nervous.
Yeah.
I mean, I get nervous before my lessons, and I love my trainer, and I've been with my trainer. I figured it out today. I've been riding with her for over 9 years now. We have a wonderful relationship that goes beyond just riding. We are friends as well. I know that she likes me. I know that she believes in me as a rider. I know that she wishes only good things for me. But I get nervous before my lessons.
Yeah.
My stomach gets upset and I get sweaty and I worry about what I'm going to wear. And because it matters, because I want her to be proud of me, because it matters.
Right.
So judging matters to me, and I want to be proud of myself at the end of the day. And competing matters because I want people to be able to look at my horses and say nice things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm nervous. I have nerves.
So the short answer is yes.
Yes, I am nervous before I compete, and I am nervous before I judge. Yes.
Well, I think you are in the boat of many people, most definitely. And so, and that's a question that we ask a lot of our big name, quote unquote, big name professionals, is if they get nervous and how they handle their nerves. And most of them have learned to turn that into what you were saying, like a positive energy, and to turn it to something good instead of something that completely throws you apart.
Unnerves.
Yes.
Yeah, or unmans them. Yeah, but I think that, we get nervous because it matters.
Yes.
And, it's a good thing, but as you said, the really good professionals have figured out how to take that anxiety and channel it into positive energy.
Exactly.
And desire for success.
Yeah.
I had a trainer many, many years ago who was getting ready to go to Devon for the first time ever. And I mean, Devon is a really big deal. And I said to her, "Are you nervous?" And she looked at me and she said, "No, I'm going to kick butt."
Yeah.
And my first thought was, I was a little taken aback at, the arrogance. And my second thought was, good for you, because that's how you channel the nerves. You use that anxiety to say, I have something to prove and I'm going to prove it. And she did.
Yeah.
I'm very proud to say that she did. So,
yeah. All right. Well, if any of you out there have a question about showing or judging, you can email me at sruff@equinenetwork.com or reach out to us on social media. And when we return, we'll have my conversation with AnnA Buffini. Boehringer Ingelheim's Equine Health's focus and passion is to improve the lives of horses. It's through heart-led science that we have developed the most advanced treatments in equine health. We have pioneered advancements in equine asthma, gastric health, PPID, vaccines, joint health, parasite control, and more. For details, visit www.buy-vetmedica.com. AnnA Buffini, who lives in San Diego, California, made a statement in dressage as a young rider. In 2014, she rode her Dutch Warmblood gelding, Sundayboy, to wins in the FEI Young Rider Team and Individual Tests at the US Dressage Festival of Champions. That same year, they were members of the gold medal team at the North American Youth Championships. She placed first and second in the 2016 USEF Young Adult Brentina Cup Dressage National Championship with Sundayboy and Wilton II, respectively. At the 2019 USEF Festival of Champions, she came back with Wilton II to win the FEI Grand Prix Freestyle 16-25, en route to becoming Brentina Cup Reserve National Champion. The last 2 years, she's been competing at the Grand Prix level, including her first trip to Europe this past summer. Thank you, AnnA, so much for joining us today on the Dressage Today podcast. We are so happy that you could be here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am just as happy that I get to be here.
Well, so to kind of get started, could you give us a little bit about your background and how you got interested in horses and dressage?
Yeah, absolutely. I started actually as a gymnast when I was 3 years old, 2 or 3 years old. And I was trying to become an elite gymnast and make US teams for that. And then when I was about 9, my body just broke down too much. And I was about 4'7". And my parents decided to pull me out of it. And thankfully I grew. And I just always loved horses. None of my family has a background with horses or even animals at all, but I just loved them. I had the whole Breyer horse collection and I had all the horse books and watched the Saddle Club and everything. And I finally broke my parents down and they let me go to a horse farm. And it just happened to be a dressage barn. I had no idea what the disciplines were. I didn't know there were certain names for it. I just wanted to ride horses, and it just happened to be dressage. And that's how I got into it. And then I just fell in love with it and I never stopped.
Wow.
So that's kind of my start.
Wow. Okay. So who were the mentors or people who have influenced your riding so far?
Yeah. I mean, my biggest mentor is Gunter Seidel, my trainer, who I train with now. He honestly, besides my parents, is probably the biggest influence in my life. He has taught me so much about how to be a rider, but also just his example of being a rider and a horseman and just a human has changed my life and saved my life in many ways. Yeah, actually, more than he'll ever know. And everything anybody ever sees me do on a horse, I owe completely to him.
Your training philosophy probably comes a bit from his training philosophy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it definitely does. And his training philosophy comes from, the old classical greats. So he was trained by Klaus Balkenhol and, all the just very, very classical, very kind of simple, the philosophy behind how we train. But in the end, it's you put the horse first and you do what's best for them. And you go from there.
Yeah. So when you are working with your horses and stuff, is there a favorite exercise or a type of work that you think is important or that you really enjoy or that you think has really made a difference with your horses?
Yeah. For me, I think just you can never do too many transitions, honestly.
I think I've heard that twice in my life.
Yeah, I feel like everyone's heard this one. For me also, I think every horse really, you have to figure out what they need the most of. There's so many foundational things though you can work on with every single horse, no matter what level, and just straightness and suppleness. But yeah, transitions I absolutely love. Shoulder four, I also think you can never do enough of. Circles, leg yields, just getting them to be supple and round and forward, and just always making sure that foundation is solid, because if it's not, when you start to put in more movements, you're going to find holes. So just making the basics so solid.
Yeah. And that's, and like you said, that the basics shine through no matter how far you go.
Exactly.
I don't remember who said it, but I know I've read a quote somewhere about somebody said, that the upper level riders work on the basics more than anything else, really.
Yes, 100%. Like when I ride especially Diva, because she knows the whole Grand Prix, 90% of my lessons are basics. Yeah. We maybe do one of each movement of every other ride or something. But I mean, it is just, you would think I was on a training level horse in a Grand Prix frame, basically.
Right.
Or just very simple, very straightforward, like filling in all the holes. And then you notice so much when you work on that. You put the piaffe together, you do the half passes, and it comes so much easier. So It really makes a huge difference. And I know it can be monotonous and tedious, but what's not tedious and monotonous is having a good ride and getting a good score. So it's worth it in the end.
That's not tedious at all, is it? No.
Exactly. So you just have to remember your end goal and know that when you're maybe a little bored of doing another 20-meter circle and working on inside leg and outside rein and wanting to like your eyes roll in the back of your head, that there's an end game,
Right. Yep. But luckily for, but that's why dressage people love dressage so much, is that they're so detail oriented and they get,
exactly,
get a little fixated on doing
I know.
this
I
stuff.
think we're a little crazy because we really love the basics. So.
Yeah. But, that's okay. We all have to be a little crazy in our own special way.
We
right?
really do. Honestly, I've never met a normal horse person. No. Let's be real.
Yeah, exactly.
None of us are normal. So it's okay. I still love us.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so this year, or this past year, for the first time, you went to Europe to compete. Yes. So what can you tell us about that whole experience?
It was unbelievable. It was so surreal. Being there was just, it felt a little bit like a dream. Sometimes I have to remind myself it was real.
Yeah.
It definitely is something you can prepare for, but unless you do it, you don't really know what to expect or how to expect it. Right. I looked up the venues and I asked people who'd been there, and I was as prepared as I possibly could have been, but you actually get there and you're riding in the same warm-up as Isabel and Dorothy Schneider and whoever and Edward Gall, and you're just like, this is real. This is happening. This is what I've dreamed of for so long. And it's something that I didn't realize how much I would enjoy it, because I know everybody's like, I don't get starstruck and I'm not impressed by big riders. And you better believe me, I was very impressed by Isabel Ward. My first ever class, she was in my same class. And she actually knows my trainer, Günther, quite well. And she came and she watched my test. Thank God I did not see her on the side, because I probably would have gone blind and ran sideways out of the arena. So I'm lucky I didn't see it, but just, stuff like that. It's magical, and it's the things you don't plan on or think about, but also in the end, it's the same arena. It's a 20 by 60 meter arena, and it's your horse you've been training on. And when you get in that show arena, it's exactly the same as home. Right. So part of it is this absolute dream wonderland, and the other part is just routine. And it's just exactly the same thing you've always done. And that's how you're able to stay focused and not look around and be scared and be starstruck. And, it's the same thing, and you're all working toward the same goal. And there's so many funny little things. Like, I had no idea they did. I remember I went to the show office, and in America, they give you a physical number you can put on your horse's bridle.
Right. And
so I checked in, and the lady was like, okay, your number is 56. And I was like, okay. And I just stood there for a second. And she didn't hand me a number. And I stood there for a longer time. And she's like, okay, that's all, bye, we're done. And so I walked out. I was like, okay, they must give me my number, later before the jog. And so I'm like walking around. Nobody else has their physical numbers in the show office. And I am just like, the jog is coming. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have a number. What is going on? I'm freaking out. I'm like, am I going to get eliminated? What is happening? And then I go to Günther and Katie, who was on the team with me. And they're like, yeah, they don't do that here. You have to bring your own number and put it on your horse. And so just things like that, I thought were so funny that I just was clueless about. And they do things different there. And those are the funny little stories you learn. And then also it's at the same time, it's very hard. If you have a bad show here in San Diego in my backyard, it's not as bad. If I have a bad show there, it's devastating. And when I was in Aachen, we had a really hard first day. Günther wasn't able to come, and to not have your coach, and it was totally fair to him. He's competing himself, so it's only fair. He stays with his Grand Prix mare and shows her. He had to show her in thermal, I think. But to not have your coach at the biggest show of your life, and for your ride to be different than normal. The first day we were last place in Aachen, and it was devastating. Not just because I got last place. It wasn't so much that. It was just like, that wasn't our ride. That wasn't who we are. That's not how I wanted to represent the US. And then the second day I called Günther, we made a plan, and it was exactly like what we would normally do. I was just back to how I ride Diva, and I was back to our game plan.
Mm-hmm.
And then she almost got third. And, you know, it was great to go from last place to third place. And we were first in the draw as well. So I was going in there, I was like, I'm going to put down the best test I can. But obviously the first rider, especially at a show in Aachen, is not going to hold up. And the whole entire first half of the class went, and we were still in first place. Like, I remember sitting there with my mom and my best friend Gina, who flew all the way there to be there for me. And we were sitting at the scoreboard. I have goosebumps right now. And halfway through the break, I was at the top of the board. I couldn't believe it. I was just like, this is a dream. This is unreal. And then the rides kept going, and I was still in first. And then my friend, what is her name? The Australian rider. I am blanking right now, but she's an amazing Australian rider from who used to ride for Helgestrand. And then she got on her horse and she like beat me up by 1 point, but I was like super happy for her because she had a tough time in the Olympics and she needed a good ride. And then someone went who was like a German, I think the German gold medalist who was last, and she won, you know. And then the very last rider to go is a Spanish rider, and we were sitting there in the stall just thinking and just waiting, and they were like, do you want to, because you have to do the prize giving in the big jumper arena, so they were like, do you want a practice horse to go, and so you don't have to waste Diva's legs and she doesn't freak out and she gets hurt. And I was like, yeah, if I get third, I'll sit on a practice horse or like, you know, someone's extra horse. But just to be in that position was unbelievable. I remember when I was even realized I was top 8, I ran back to the stall to tell my groom, Alex, we had to braid her. And I remember he like went out to get lunch because none of us thought I would like run up.
Okay, we're
like,
done.
Hey,
we're done
back.
For the day.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite memories. I was like, hey, come back. We got a braider. I'm top 8. And then I was top 7th, and then top 6th, and top 5th, and top 4th. And then until the last guy went, he beat me out by like half a point or something. And I was on just absolute cloud 9. But I think also those are the stories you don't hear, you know, and those are the stories people don't want to share. Like, I don't really want to broadcast that I was last place the first day, you know, but everybody selected me to go and to be on this team. And I don't want to let my team down. And I'm telling everybody I was dead last. But then it was a really very sweet, but also like powerful, you know, redemption story that we were able to just I was able to have my own ride that I usually have with Diva. And I was like, girl, we got nothing to lose, first of all. Ain't nobody watching us.
Nowhere to go but up.
Nobody's threatened by us right now. And we just went out there and we did our ride, and everything clicked. And I even made a few dumb mistakes. So it was cool to see that a ride like with mistakes got 4th place, and we could have, if I didn't make those mistakes, we would have been in 3rd. So that was really incredible to realize. But it's also something I want people to hear, and I want people to know. You're on cloud 9, and you can be devastated at the same time, and it's heartbreaking and it's hard. And it's not just like this fairy tale story where it's like, oh, you know, you get there and you think you're going to be happy and you think you've made it. And it's almost the opposite. You're almost less happy because of the pressure you're under. You're almost, everything's harder. There's more eyes, there's more spotlight. So it's an absolute dream, but it's also very, very hard at the same time. Yeah.
Well, so besides learning that you don't get a physical number in Europe, what other lessons did you learn that you can take, you know, into your upcoming season in Wellington?
Oh, so many. Trying to think back. I think again, like just really focusing on you and your horse and not letting things distract you is huge, and sticking to your game plan and not letting anyone or anything or what people say about you distract you as well. Because I'm a big like words of affirmation person, so I love giving them. And when people say a lot of stuff about me, it definitely, I don't appreciate it. And I remember when I got Fiantini, the amount of crying emojis I saw on those posts all over the world was overwhelming. I ended up shutting off Facebook and I was like, first of all, I don't need to see how many people in the world are watching this horse because I did not realize. And then second of all, how many people didn't like it and weren't excited. And everybody's like, first of all, they're hating on Helga Strand for selling the horse so many times. And then they're hating on Patrick. And they're like, why would you even take the horse if you knew it would be sold, even though he has nothing to do with it? And then they're like, who is this horse going to? They're like, who is this child? Nobody knows. And so, there's a lot of that now, especially with social media. And then I saw Charlie Desjardins sold her horse Pumpkin. And she got more hate than anybody, and it's just like, first of all, people need to mind their own business. And second of all, just the higher you get up in the sport, the more people are going to talk and the more these keyboard heroes are going to speak out. And I should say more so maybe keyboard cowards who they would never say it to your face, but they say the nastiest things when they're behind a computer. And that's one of the biggest things I learned from Europe and from buying Fiantini is that you just need to listen to your own team and the people that love you and the people you love. Like my bubble is going to be so small when I go to Florida of people I engage with, of people I talk to, of people I just let in, because it really makes a difference in how you compete. Like my cousin is probably going to manage my social media. And I know everybody loves to go out in Wellington and loves to go to dinner every single night and socialize. And a lot of times I'll go out. I mean, the people who know me know who's cool, but a lot of times I'll go out and then I'll hear those people have like talked nasty about me. And those are not people I need to spend my time with. So I'm just really keeping myself focused and keeping my world small, because my horses have worked too hard for me to be distracted, and they deserve to have the best version of me that I can possibly be.
I hear you. It's easy to get distracted if you allow it. Definitely. Absolutely. So you mentioned Fiantini, your new Grand Prix horse that you purchased just a couple of months ago. So can you tell us a little bit about her, how you found her, and how things are going so far?
So I actually fell in love with this horse when Charlie Desjardins did a test ride on her like 5 years ago, maybe, or 4 years ago. She was 6 or 7. And I saw this YouTube clip and she got on her and it was just this unbelievable horse. And Charlotte gave it a 10 out of 10 rideability wise and gaits wise. And I was just like, wow, what would it be like to ride a horse like that? And a horse that, the #1 rider in the world loved so much. And so ever since then, I've watched her and kept tabs on her. I was just such a fan of this horse. And I saw her in Aachen. I've been looking for a horse all year long because I've actually lost 3 horses in the past 11 months. It's been a wild year. My best horse, Don Diego, like absolutely unbelievable. One of the best horses I will ever ride in my life. He got sold to us and he had an injury we didn't know about. And it ended up he couldn't actually walk. I was going to retire him in a field and he couldn't even stand anymore.
Wow.
So after we lost him, we went on the hunt for another horse. And I have tried maybe 53 Grand Prix horses this year. We've tried a lot and we've gone all over the world and just nothing was what I was looking for. And fair enough, everybody's going to show me their B horse. They're not showing me their A horse. And I said, well, who sells their best horses is Helga Strand. So I called him up and he said, we have this, and this horse. And I said, oh no, Gunther ended up calling him. And Gunther said, where's Fiantini? That's the one we want to try.
So you pulled all the strings you could, didn't you?
We sure did. And he said, okay. I had to fly home because she was resting from Aachen. And then I had to fly all the way back about 2 weeks later. And I remember, I think it took me about 2 steps to know that was her.
Yeah.
I was like, this is it. We found it. I fell in love. She was just incredible. She wasn't easy. It wasn't because she's easy I got her. It was just because of the potential you can feel and the greatness that's inside of her. I think any Grand Prix horse at that level is not going to be easy.
Right.
But we're not asking for easy. We're asking for possible and for the dream that we're both working towards.
Yeah.
And she's only been ridden by men her entire life. So she's definitely learning how to be ridden by a girl. And thankfully she's got a big old strong girl on her who works out a lot. But she's definitely enjoying the life of being ridden by a girl with, I mean, my heels go down to Patrick Kittle's knees, I think.
Right.
So I remember she still does it sometimes. When I first started riding her, she would shake her sides like flies were on her. She thought my legs were flies, literally. I always just laughed, and Gunter would die laughing too, because it was just, she was so unused to having a leg that high, and also like the pressure I was applying was just so light. She didn't even recognize it was a leg. So it's going really well. I mean, good. Again, I think I'm about 15 rides in with her. And so there's a long way to go. It really takes about a year to get used to a horse. So I honestly do not know what I'm doing next year. I know a lot of publications have come out and said what I'm doing, but that is not from my mouth. So I am just going to train, and we're going to do the absolute best we can to take care of her, and do whatever shows we're ready for. So but she is going to Wellington, so that's my number one goal right now, is to compete in Wellington and then go from there. But I think as soon as you start assuming what you can do and what shows you're going to compete at is when you is not right. Especially, it's my second Grand Prix year ever. I just got this horse. I'm not about to say I'm going to this show and this show. I have no idea what I'm going to do, and I know, especially because I just did this with Diva last year.
Yeah. And
you have a good show, you blow it the next show. You have a good show, you blow it the next show. And it really is because you and the horse don't know each other very well yet. It's unfair, and it's unpractical to think you can go out there and just blow it out of the water every single show.
Right.
So I need to, aim high, set a very high bar, but also be realistic and take time with her. So
how old is she?
Take care of her. She's 11.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, she's a really good age.
Yeah. That's an excellent age.
Mm-hmm.
So well, but that's exciting. And you're taking Diva to Wellington as well, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Yeah. So this would be, like you said, last year was actually just your first year showing Grand Prix with her. So, so now you have a whole year of showing under your belt with her, including Europe. So are you feeling, confident with her coming into?
Yeah. Funny enough, I don't feel as confident as I thought I would.
Oh, yeah.
I think dressage has a way of just humbling you to the absolute bones,
Yeah.
Which is good. There's no room for cockiness anyways. Right. But I do feel comfortable with her. I do feel like if something goes wrong in the show arena, or we're having trouble, that I now have experience with her on how to hopefully fix it in the show arena. And I think that's huge, because really when you're in a test, you're just like, you're course correcting the whole time, and that's kind of how we make it look perfect. We're just fixing things the whole time. So I really feel like a teammate to her now, though. I really feel like we're best friends. I know her, she knows me. We're so comfortable together, and I think that's a feeling I'm very excited about. I honestly feel like now I'm finally ready to show her. Like I have no idea how I just did this year. And when I look back, I'm like, was I crazy?
Right.
Like,
yeah, 10, 20 years from now, you'll look back on it and really think you're crazy, probably.
I think so too. I was like, we did Rotterdam. Who chose that?
Whose idea was this?
Yeah. But I mean, I'm so grateful for it. And, thankfully USEF was, for some of the selections, they were really thinking about the future and getting us experience as well. And
right.
I think it paid off so much, because now that I have Fiantini, it won't be if I ever make Europe, it won't be my first European season.
Right.
So I can see really the thought process and the wisdom behind the decision they made, because now hopefully, you know, it's going to take time, but we'll be a force for the US, and we can help represent them very well. And they helped give us the experience we needed this year.
Yeah. So I guess the word is you're comfortable, not necessarily confident. You're comfortable.
Yes, I am comfortable, and I'm working on being confident, because it's I think we all of us riders do need to work on confidence a bit, not cockiness, but confidence, because we work hard, and we should feel a little better. And I think a lot of it, especially the younger riders, I feel like the sport is so mature, and we're competing against people twice as old as we are. And there's definitely a balance of respect for the sport and the people, but also not making ourselves smaller just because we're younger. You know, there's a old saying that says, don't let them despise you because of your youth. And it means that you shouldn't shrink back because you're younger. You shouldn't have less confidence because you're younger. You've put in the work, you've put in the hours, and yes, they have more experience and more hours, but you shouldn't be insecure about what you're going to do. So I think that's something I'm definitely gonna work on this season.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, you know, equestrian sports across the board are one of the only sports where the older people a lot of times actually will have that upper echelon. Instead of so many sports, it's the young people that, you know, kind of but equestrian sports is the ultimate equalizer in a way, you know, age range, and as well as men and women competing, you know, equally and everything. So
100%. It's very different.
Yeah, it is. And so that's kind of interesting. And but you're right. Yeah. It's you're right that the perception of youth is that you don't have the experience, so you're not there yet, but you have obviously worked very hard as well.
Yeah. And like, you see Lottie Fry out there doing it, and you see Charlotte Dujardin was 26 when she won Olympic gold, you know, and they have this tiger mentality that, you know, you see them and you're like, okay, I'm not getting in their way. And so, you know, without being cocky and without being prideful, I also want to step into the show arena with that.
So the last question that I have for you is one that we like to ask everyone, just to get their perception or their perspective, I guess I should say. And that is, what do you think makes a good horse person?
I think, like my trainer again, I think in the end, it's all about the horse. It's putting the horse first. It's learning about your horse, knowing what they need, what makes them happy, what makes them upset. Everything you do is the horse's thought of first, in riding and training and handling and transport and food. Every single thing is catered towards the horse, and you can't let your dreams outwork the horse. You can't let them be bigger than what your horse can do or what your horse is capable of in the moment necessarily. And you don't let your dreams get in the way of your horsemanship. So like, if your horse is not feeling it, you scratch the class, or you know, things like that. Like Sundayboy in 2014, in Young Riders, he wasn't feeling well, and we were like one of the favorites to place, and we were able to thankfully help our team win gold, but he just wasn't doing well. So we pulled out of the class, and that was my last year of Young Riders. So we never got to find out how it would have gone. But that would be the example that I've lived out about putting your horse first.
Okay. Well, It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. And I just want to thank you for taking some time to talk to us about your horses and what's coming up for you. And we look forward to seeing what happens.
Thank you so much for talking to me. I always feel like the older I get, the more kind of real I get. So it's interesting to almost hear myself. And I'm like, wow, AnnA, that was real. You wouldn't have said that 3 years ago.
Yeah, right.
But it's good. It's good. We need to have a voice and we need to be able to be real, because I think a lot of it is about, trying to make yourself look perfect. And that's not life. And that's not going to encourage anybody. People need to see the highs and the lows. And it's got to be real.
Well, hopefully you'll have some highs to balance out the inevitable lows that hit all of us from time to time.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again to AnnA Buffini for joining us today, and also to our episode sponsor, Boehringer Ingelheim. With this being our last podcast of the year, on behalf of Aviva Nebeski and myself, I want to wish everyone a very happy new year, and we'll see you in 2022. Thanks for listening to the Dressage Today podcast. If you've missed any episodes or to subscribe, go to Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. While you're there, please rate and review the show. Learn more and read in-depth training articles at dressagetoday.com, or you can visit our subscription video site, ondemand.dressagetoday.com. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Happy riding, and we'll see you at X. The Dressage Today podcast is a production of the Equine Podcast Network, an entity of Equine Network, LLC.